In this video, I want to discuss subordinating conjunctions and what happens when they are actually used incorrectly, and then put in an apparent sentence that actually does not combine anything. They're not combining anything in that sentence. That produces a certain fragment called the subordinating fragment. For our purposes here, we can just think of it as a general fragment, another type of fragment. We don't need to know the specific distinctions, but as long as you can recognize them as fragments. Now, these are correct. These sentences correctly use subordinating conjunctions, all right? So here's the one right there. Notice how it's got a pattern to the left, a pattern to the right, and it correctly joins the two because you do have two patterns on the left or right. And notice you can take where the shopper left it, comma, the bag lay. You can move this up to the front. So now notice this one. This is here is a pattern right here. The large barge left the harbor. The smaller boats were allowed in. That's another pattern, two patterns. Now you have the after right here. But can you see how it is actually combining these two patterns? Because you can take this and you can move it over to the side here, right here. You can put it right there. Of course, you're going to have to capitalize this correctly then. You know, the smaller boats were allowed in. You know, you don't even need a comma there after the large boats left the harbor. That's done correctly. Here, this is a subordinating conjunction here and not a preposition because it's coming between two patterns and it's joining them. It's producing some sort of it's relating the two, all right, in terms of time or cause or. Now, Marcy could not sleep while the train was passing her. Here's the correctly used subordinating conjunction. Here's one that's again switched to the front. Before you go, I will show you my collection. You don't need the comma here. It's still fine. And notice that this could be, I will show you my collection before you go. So before really is a subordinating conjunction coming between two patterns. Here it is, right here, used as a preposition because notice what it's coming between is a time and a pattern. So that's not a subordinating conjunction, but this is. And then here we have if shot out to the front. Now notice that this is not a conjunction. This is an adverb. The word then is an adverb, so that can't join anything. But because you have an if here, and it's all one sentence, you do have two patterns that are joined with the if, because you can say, the traffic should be moving if the roads are clear. Alright, so this is your subordinating conjunction. It's used properly in this sentence. Students should not form an outline for an essay. Notice that all of that really is one pattern. Your verb is should not form. Direct objects is outlined, subjects is students. This is a prepositional phrase, so you can omit it for all it matters. They have researched the subject. Have researched is the verb. They is the subject. The subject is the direct object. Here is your preposition, your subordinating conjunction coming between them. Now, unfortunately, is a conjunctive adverb. It does nothing to combine anything. It's just a nice transitional word. Here's your subordinating conjunction. Now, notice what we can do here. We can go. Unfortunately, because they were strangers, comma, the pilgrims met hostility, period. Or we can say, because they were strangers, comma, the pilgrims unfortunately met hostility, period. So you can switch this around in various parts of the sentence, which tells you it's a conjunctive adverb. This is your subordinating conjunction. Now, what happens when you separate, in other words, let's take a look at this one, okay? You see that right there? This is actually a subordinating fragment because although the semicolon can combine patterns, if it's doing it, it's not allowing this to combine patterns. So this is being used in the sentence as something other than a conjunction, but it is a subordinating conjunction. So this is incorrectly used. The way you would do it here is pop that out and put the period in there. Okay? Well, capitalize it. Pop that out and put a comma. I'm sorry, put a comma. There you go. Or you don't even need anything. Okay? But this is a subordinating conjunction. Now it's correct. Belinda felt nervous before her speech, period. Even though she had practiced. No, wait a minute. This is a subordinating conjunction. It needs to combine two patterns. The way you would fix this is just... There you go. Now it's acting as glue between this pattern and this pattern right here. So, here, let's take a look at this. Phil was separated from the train. Now this actually is, I'm going to erase that because that's correct. New Yorkers love New York's Eve, especially when everyone is celebrating. Well, wait a minute. When? is a subordinated conjunction. It needs to combine two patterns. Here it's not combining two patterns. It's separated into one pattern right here. So this is not correctly used. The waiter was ready for a new job, period. Okay, so now I have one sentence and I have two sentences, okay? But this second sentence has a subordinating conjunction. So we call this a subordinating fragment. All of these are subordinated fragments because they are just parts of sentences. This is, I know it's capitalized and punctuated as a complete sentence, but it really is not a complete sentence because this word in this way before a pattern needs to have a pattern on both sides. So the way we can fix this is just to do this. Now it's correct. But before, in this version, whoops, excuse me, in this version right here, it's a subordinated fragment. Now watch out, these sentences are correct. Mechanics check the tire pressure, period. Also, they look at the oil level. These are two correctly separated sentences. This is not a conjunction at all, so it doesn't have to be joining anything. It's an adverb. Tim always saves a third of his paycheck. Colon. Undoubtedly. Now, undoubtedly is not a conjunction. It's an adverb, so it's fine. It doesn't have to combine anything. These two are fine. The semicolon is actually doing the combining. Wolves locate their prey from afar. Next, they circle. Next is not a conjunction. It's a conjunctive adverb. So this is these two right here are basically the same. Although the sun was shining, the air was still bitterly cold. Now you have an although here, but it is coming between this pattern and this pattern. Because you could say the air was still bitterly cold although the sun was shining. And then there's a period. So the burden of combining has been done. This doesn't have to be combined. And indeed, this is not a conjunction, so it's not breaking any rule. It doesn't have to combine. It's an adverb. So this is all correctly punctuated, this number 18.